Korea to Germany. From Alaska to Puerto Rico. All over the world, the United States Army is on the alert to defend our country, you, the American people, against aggression. This is the big picture. An official television report to the nation from the United States Army. Now, to show you part of the big picture, here is Sergeant Stuart Queen.
Today we bring you the story of America's newest weapon in her arsenal of defense, the guided missile. Portions of this story were filmed in secrecy and now have been declassified in order that you, the American people, might know the progress that is being made in the field of guided missile research and development.
The never closed picked up and are tracking unidentified bombers. Any attack on our nation would first be met by the Air Force fighters on our shores. But some of the attacking bombers may still break through, flying above the range of our best anti-aircraft guns. Vital seconds tick away as the aggressor planes are plotted on course. To halt any such attack, the Army has a new secret weapon, and you will now see a radio-controlled plane intercepted. On the bridge in the plotting room, artillery control officers set in motion Operation Intercept.
Track number 9. Identified as bandit. Alert status is now red. Attention all units. Attention all units. Condition of readiness. Battle stations. I say again, battle stations. Flash. Missile battalion. This is Layla. Intercept. Track number 9. 30,000. Out.
Intercept accomplished by guided missiles. Rocket-powered weapons flying at supersonic speeds, destroying unseen targets, are no longer science fiction, but are today a military fact, developed after years of research by Army ordnance. To defend our cities, guided missile battalions are being organized and equipped, and will supplement anti-aircraft defenses in the near future. The history of guided missiles began with the invention of rockets. Man soon learned that rockets could be used in his everyday life, but for many years the potential of this new power went unexploited. But a few visionary scientists, often scoffed at by the public, went ahead with their ideas. By diligence, mistakes, and greater effort, rocket pioneers made progress. Slowly, they were harnessing this tremendous power to the things around them. It was an historical moment when the first rocket plane was launched. The vision and skill of men like Zucker, Sonder, and the American Goddard produced bigger and better rockets. But for every success, there were two failures. The way had been pointed, and men saw, not too far distant, the day when rockets would capture outer space. But World War II stopped all peaceful pursuit of rocket development. Masterminds in rocket experimentation, the Germans were quick to see the potential of rockets as weapons. Their scientific skill produced the V-1 bomb, and a new era in warfare was born. The frightening V-2 guided missile followed, but only after many mistakes, as these captured German films of early rocket launching show. At war's end, Army ordnance brought back to America about 100 German rockets and some of the scientists who had built them. In our Army proving grounds, the old German rockets were put to work for research. In them, our military strategists saw the shape of weapons to come. Now, after 8 years of research, today's spectacular guided missiles have joined our arsenal of defense. Behind these amazing weapons are the well-trained rocket missile crewmen, not all college boys with scientific degrees, but soldiers of average backgrounds, men trained to launch the missiles under combat conditions. Rocket crewmen are trained in guided missile schools at Fort Bliss, Texas. From all branches of the Army, they are being drawn for special guided missile training. Recruits soon learn that this new assignment is different from anything they have known before. From now on, they will be living with secrets. They are cleared for top security, for in months to come, they will share some of our nation's most closely guarded information. At an orientation lecture after their first day in school, the men learn why they were chosen to be missile crewmen and what lies before them.
Good morning, men. You're probably wondering why you're here. Well, there's a very good reason for it. You're not here on a shortcut trip to the moon or to learn how to fly a spaceship. You're here to receive intensive instruction in one of the Army's latest and deadliest weapons, the guided missile. Although you've come from all branches of the Army, your service records, which have been very carefully screened, clearly indicate that all of you possess the necessary technical and mechanical ability to become experts in handling guided missiles. During the next 11 weeks, you will receive intensive instruction in the field of guided missiles. At first, the missiles themselves and the control components that go with those missiles may seem to you to be highly complicated. However, with the classroom instruction that you will receive, coupled with the practical work on the actual equipment, you will have no difficulty in thoroughly mastering your jobs. The field that you're in is a somewhat new field that you will find to be both challenging and highly interesting. The opportunities before you are almost unlimited. I urge you to make the most of them. Thank you, men. Class dismissed.
The road to becoming a rocket crewman is a long and technical one, and begins with a 3-week evaluation course in basic mathematics. Students must also take an elementary course in electronics, and they must struggle with the principles of physics. After basic training, the student rocket men are divided and classified as electronics men or propulsion men. Then they are assigned to the missile which they will learn to operate and fire. The surface-to-air missile Nike. Sleek, beautiful, deadly, an ingenious anti-aircraft artillery piece. Trainees remember their first good look at a guided missile. Security checks follow them into the hangar, where Nike, a weapon of tomorrow ready for use today, is stored under guard. Asked what they think as they see the missile unveiled for the first time, the men invariably answer, "It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Up to now, these men have seen rifles and machine guns and tanks, but this kind of weapon is beyond their imaginations. It travels at a speed far greater than sound, piercing the supersonic barrier. It has its own electronic brain, which can steer it straight onto a target, all by the press of a button on the ground. This is a weapon bordering on the unbelievable, Nike, named after the Greek goddess of victory. With it, the Army can now destroy aircraft flying outside the range of anti-aircraft guns. Radars find the target and plot its course. Then the electronic brain on the ground computes a point of intercept and guides the missile to its target. But for all the mechanical and scientific genius of guided missiles, they are only as good as the men who will service, operate, and fire them. It takes a lot of men, highly skilled and trained, to complete the guided missile team. Launching specialists, guided missile mechanics, propulsion experts. It takes men who understand electronics. Men to work the radar, nerve system of guided missiles. Trainees work hard. They must know the workings of jet engines and how to check the complex insides of a missile. Soldiers with engineering backgrounds take a specialist's course in guided missiles, which is more advanced than that taken by the crewmen. These are the men who will be guided missile instructors, the men responsible for keeping the missiles in firing order, qualified to troubleshoot and diagnose malfunctions. They are the engineers and brains in support of the launching crewmen. When they go on their first bird shoot, that's what crewmen call a guided missile launching, the men no longer consider themselves rocket rookies. For practice launchings, the men fire obsolete V-1 rockets brought from Germany after the last war. Maybe they aren't the latest thing in guided missiles, but they give the propulsion men, who are called plumbers, a chance to prepare a rocket for flight. And for every plumber at work on the bird, there is somewhere an electron man checking some wires. Artillery officers, hand-picked engineers in training to be unit commanders of guided missile battalions, undergo their own field training as part of their long course in guided missiles. Week after week, the training continues, and hundreds of hours of classroom theory slowly turn to fact as the men become familiar with guided missile operation. The missiles grow more complex. The complicated guidance systems must be checked and rechecked, and the special procedures for fueling must be practiced. Protective suits give the soldiers a men from Mars appearance during the fueling of these super rockets. Carefully, the fuels which will hurtle the missile into atmosphere unpenetrated by man are pumped into the rocket. The target for this practice firing is a small radio-controlled plane, which takes the place of an enemy target. The plane is flown by a crewman on the ground. With the target in flight, the missile is raised and then launched. At Army Ordnance's White Sands Proving Ground, deep in the New Mexico desert, crewmen finish off their training using the latest tactical missiles science can produce. After months of preparation, the crewmen now handle and work on the real thing in the research and development stage. These are missiles capable of carrying atomic warheads. Readying one of them for flight is an engineering miracle in itself. There can be no mistakes. One wrong move, one misplaced screw or wire could sabotage a missile costing thousands of dollars. Electronic circuits must be checked. Guidance systems must be in trigger operation. For this to be a successful launching, hundreds of electronic sequences must be run through without a single hitch. At a speed which must still remain a secret, the missile rockets into the ionosphere, eclipsed by the sun on its journey into space. These are the forerunners of rocket ships to the moon, and an idea of what space travel of the future will be like is vividly depicted in these films taken from a rocket in flight. The takeoff is smooth, and through the motion picture camera, an armchair trip into space begins. Slipping away below can be seen the white sands of New Mexico and the mountain ranges holding in the Texas and New Mexico desert. Up and up the rocket flashes, traveling at a speed many times greater than our fastest plane. The high-speed camera slows down the action to bring this startling view of the Earth. Valley and the mountains of the Continental Divide pass by like whistle stops. Now the rocket has reached its summit, 76 miles up. This is the highest distance at which the Earth has ever been photographed. Tipping and spinning like an inverted top, the rocket starts its descent to Earth. 1 minute pointing at the sun and at the Earth the next, the camera sweeps across the lower length of the continent, giving man an unprecedented view of the planet he calls Earth. Army guided missiles are pioneering the way into space. But these soldiers are training to handle a weapon and not a trip to the moon. Behind closely guarded doors, Nike missile crewmen assemble the weapon they will later fire. From the manufacturer's crate to actual launching, enlisted men build and check the wonder weapons. A missile is ready to take part in a research and development test firing against an actual plane in flight. From the hangar where it was assembled, the Nike missile is taken to the transporter, which will carry it to the launching area. But first, the missile must be fueled, and it stops off at the fueling area. During fueling of the missiles, crewmen wear protective clothing, just as they did in their training. This protection permits a safe fueling operation. And right up to the time of firing, elaborate and extensive safety precautions are observed. The missile is now hot. It is fueled and ready for flight. On the last stage of its journey to the launching pad for its research test firing, this missile is escorted the last few miles by a fire truck. Just before the test chute begins, the missile is joined to its booster. This assists the rocket at takeoff and helps it reach supersonic speeds in a matter of seconds. With the missile now firmly fixed to the launching rail, it is moved into the firing position. Last-minute adjustments are made. As the last safety pin is pulled, the firing operation begins.
All stations, this is Nike Project Command. At my signal, the time will be X-60 minutes. Mark, X-60 minutes.
A red smoke signal is set off on top of the blockhouse. Inside, the men stand ready at the command controls. Should a hitch occur, the firing process can be stopped with the press of a button.
The status is now ready alert.
The minutes tick away, and from the blockhouse, a warning flare is fired. And all over the range, roadblocks are set up to keep everything out of the firing area. 3 miles away at the control center, the target tracking radar is fixed onto the plane, which is to be attacked, and is sending its position data to the computer. In a split second, the computer works out a point of intercept. The atmosphere at the fire control center is tense. The project officer is ready to throw the switch.
All stations, this is Nike Project Command. At my signal, the time will be X-20 seconds. Mark, X-20 seconds. 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. I will now announce time to intercept. 25 seconds, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Intercept.
That's the story of the guided missile, a new weapon of defense of the artillery's anti-aircraft battalions. And this is Sergeant Stuart Queen inviting you to be with us next week for another story in The Big Picture.
The Big Picture is a weekly television report to the nation on the activities of the Army at home and overseas. Produced by the Signal Corps Pictorial Center. Presented by the U.S. Army in cooperation with this station. You can be an important part of the big picture. You can proudly serve with the best equipped, the best trained, the best fighting team in the world today, the United States Army.
Southeast Asia. The fleet needed a weapon system precise enough to score hits on bridge and barge-sized targets. A precision first-pass kill capability was needed to keep the element of surprise and to improve aircraft survivability. The Naval Weapons Center responded by adapting existing Air Force laser-guided bomb kits to fill Navy and Marine needs. A lightweight handheld laser was quickly developed to designate targets for the adapted bombs. The laser-guided bombs followed the reflected laser energy to the designated target, improving bombing accuracy significantly. Medium and low energy lasers are very effective for target designation and for other military applications because the narrow, intense beam of coherent light is extremely concentrated in energy and travels over long distances. Also, laser devices are small and portable. Laser designators can pinpoint specific targets within a target complex. The second system adapted, also from Air Force assets, was Pave Knife, a television targeting system with a laser target designator. In January 1973, using the adapted Pave Knife system, Navy A-6 aircraft from Squadron VA-145 destroyed 16 bridges in North Vietnam. The mission was completed in under 3 hours, with no losses. Today, lasers are an integral part of naval warfare, used in target designation, ordnance guidance, ranging, weapons fusing, and communications. Laser use and sophistication continues to expand. The word laser is an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. The components of the basic laser are an energy pumping source, usually a gas-filled flash lamp, the lasing element, and 2 mirrors. The lasing element can be composed of crystals, such as ruby or gallium arsenide, or of gas, such as carbon dioxide or ammonia. As the flash lamp pulses, it pumps energy into ions in the lasing element. The energized ions emit particles of light, photons. These photons strike other ions, stimulating them to emit a second photon of the same frequency, in phase with and moving in the same direction as the bombarding photons. Very quickly, a cascade of photons develops in a rapid chain reaction. The photons are reflected between the mirrors, amplifying the cascade to a very high level. Controlled electro-optically, the photons burst through the laser output mirror as a narrow beam of coherent light of high peak power. Depending on design, laser light is emitted either in pulses or in a steady stream. The precision of laser optics is extremely critical. A cumulative error of 100 millionth of an inch in optical surfaces can degrade the beam quality of a system significantly. Refinements in optical surfaces are measured in hundredths of a percent. Extensive research is being conducted to develop optics which best meet the cost and performance requirements of military laser systems. The most common military laser is the neodymium-doped yttrium aluminum garnet laser, or YAG laser. YAG lasers produce invisible light in the near-infrared spectrum. The human eye sees only light of shorter wavelengths. YAG lasers are particularly eye hazardous because they focus on the human retina. Looking directly at a laser beam, even from several miles away, can cause severe eye damage. Reflected laser energy is also a hazard. All laser sighting devices have built-in filters to protect the operator. Used properly by trained operators, laser systems are safe and have many advantages over other systems. One advantage is that a laser beam remains narrow and intense over long distances. For example, at 1 mile, the collimated laser beam forms an intense spot less than 30 inches in diameter. By comparison, at this range, a powerful narrow beam flashlight throws a faint circle 1,500 feet in diameter. The invisible laser beam must be aimed. Therefore, pointing accuracy is essential for system effectiveness. Because the beam is extremely narrow and travels long distances, vibration of the laser mount or user movement introduces spot jitter, hampering laser performance significantly. Invisible collimated laser light is less susceptible to detection and countermeasures than other active sources. Radar, for example, emits energy in a widely dispersed pattern, which can be quickly detected and readily jammed. Reflected laser energy is also difficult to detect, and if detected, is more likely to reveal the target than the source. Since laser energy is usually released in pulses, security against countermeasures is strengthened by altering the pulse repetition frequency, the PRF, from laser to laser. PRF coding also permits simultaneous attack of different targets in the same combat area. Each target designator has a large number of operator-selectable frequencies. The weapons are programmed to respond only to a specific pre-selected frequency. They disregard all other laser energy and guide only to their intended targets. A ground-based forward observer with a laser target designator can direct laser-guided weapons from aircraft, ships, or ground-based artillery. The laser, however, must have an unobstructed line of sight to the target. If not, every tree, rock, and bush it strikes may look like a target to the incoming ordnance. Additionally, if the laser beam is too wide, or if the target is too small, laser energy spills over the target, illuminating unintended areas, possibly creating false targets. One laser system in development, the Mule, not only designates targets, but determines azimuth, elevation, and true north. This improves significantly the accuracy of conventional ordnance delivery. Airborne laser systems also have grown in accuracy, capacity, and sophistication. The Laser Spot Tracker, LST, developed at the Naval Weapons Center, is an airborne search set that scans target areas and automatically locks on to a target designated by a forward observer. The forward observer aids LST-equipped aircraft in locating obscure targets. The forward observer illuminates a prominent terrain feature which the pilot can find easily. After the aircraft is headed toward this initial point, the observer moves the designator to illuminate the actual target. With the target designated, the aircraft, without changing heading, releases ordnance which guides to the target. The angle rate bombing system, ARBS, is another NWC-designed airborne laser system which uses a ground-based target designator. ARBS contains a laser tracker and a computer to calculate bomb release point. ARBS senses reflected laser energy from the target and calculates the bomb release point based on the aircraft's angle of attack, velocity, and range. Accuracy is much greater than with conventional bombing. Pave Knife is a pod-contained laser target designator system. The laser is bore-sighted to a low light level TV camera used to identify and track targets. The bombardier navigator lasers the target while observing it on the TV screen. With the target designated, laser-guided weapons are launched from either the Pave Knife aircraft or another aircraft. The Night Observation Surveillance System is a self-contained 24-hour airborne surveillance and target designation system. It consists of a modified OV-10 equipped with a forward-looking infrared or FLIR system and a laser target designator and rangefinder. The FLIR detects infrared radiation emitted from targets, allowing accurate ground target assessment either day or night. The laser designator, aimed with the FLIR, illuminates the target for weapons from the OV-10 or from other aircraft. Another airborne laser system, the Target Recognition Attack Multisensor, TRAM, is a state-of-the-art target sensor and designator for high-performance attack aircraft. TRAM has three key elements: a high-resolution FLIR search set for viewing, target detection, and tracking, a laser for target designation, range finding, and weapon guidance, and a laser receiver to locate targets designated by other lasers. Because all TRAM sensors are contained in a multi-axis turret, targets are tracked continuously. A look-back capability allows tracking, weapon guidance, and bomb damage assessment as the aircraft leaves the target area. Lasers are used also in weapons fusing systems. New generation Sidewinder air-to-air missiles use 4 gallium arsenide lasers in their proximity fuse. Each laser covers about 90 degrees around the missile's axis. Receivers in the fuse sense reflected laser energy from the target and detonate the warhead at a distance of maximum lethality. Laser ranging fuses initiate bomb burst at the optimum height above the surface to achieve maximum effectiveness. Research and development is continuing into laser technology to develop new applications and to improve existing systems. Carbon dioxide lasers, widely used in laboratories, may complement YAG lasers in future low-power field uses. Light from carbon dioxide lasers can be seen by imaging infrared viewers. And the infrared energy from carbon dioxide lasers penetrates smoke, fog, and haze much better than YAG lasers of the same power. Also, carbon dioxide lasers are much less dangerous to the human eye than YAG lasers. Laser, data, and communication links are being developed. They are secure and extremely directional, with an almost unlimited data handling capacity. The active laser seeker, being developed for air-to-air missile weapon systems, is a search and track system using a high PRF laser and a matched receiver. The system locates the target, locks on, and feeds directional, angular, and closing data to the missile. The active laser seeker has high target selectivity and low countermeasure vulnerability. From laboratory research to advanced fleet systems, lasers are in the forefront of naval technology. Lasers are safe, versatile, precise, and uniquely applicable to our modern fleet systems. Laser use, with its speed and reliability, is an important link in defeating an increasingly sophisticated threat.
Okay, move out.
The early American citizen soldiers' weapons were pitifully inadequate by today's standards. The supply of powder and lead was equally limited. At the beginning of the Revolutionary War, the colonies fought for freedom with whatever shot and powder they could scrape together. But if it were going to survive, our infant nation could no longer depend upon small hand tools and forges. It needed a dependable armament source. Even after the revolution was won, the need for an adequate source of armament remained. One reason was simple growing pains. The nation was rapidly expanding westward, and only with sure firepower could the frontier be rolled back. The other reason was defense. The young nation's integrity was imperiled time and time again, both from within and from without. As early as the mid-19th century, the young American Republic could feel secure in her ability to arm herself, for foundries and powder mills had sprung up throughout the country. Like the nation itself, they grew until they became the producers of the seemingly limitless supply of armaments devoured by World War II. The mini-ball, flintlock, and powder horn, like this well-used powder tester, were the very best available in their day. Times have changed, but the need for up-to-date, dependable firepower has remained the same. Today's armament is so complex that there's simply no room for confusion or uncertainty. This is the story of the streamlined and centralized system that keeps the Army's weapons combat ready. The story of the Army Munitions Command. The Munitions Command has its headquarters near Dover, New Jersey at Picatinny Arsenal. It provides the Army with firepower for all its weapons systems. The task is staggering. It involves keeping firm control of 4,400 different products, and those are only the end products. Secondary items run to 44,000. Picatinny Arsenal is the Army's main research and engineering center for both nuclear and conventional munitions. Picatinny has lived up to its responsibilities, and that hasn't always been easy. When an unprepared United States entered World War II, there was no other plant in America that could produce anything larger than small arms ammunition. Picatinny had a twofold job. It had to provide private industry with the technical know-how for the desperate fight ahead, while it was filling the production gap by itself. The arsenal turned out countless millions of munitions items, and at the same time trained thousands of workers in highly specialized skills. But that was years ago, an atomic age ago. Today, Picatinny, like all elements of the Munitions Command, is concerned not with the accomplishments of yesterday, but with the challenges of tomorrow. Challenges that the Arsenal's 7,000 engineers, scientists, and skilled workers have always been determined to meet. Back in 1953, a successful test of a new 280mm shell opened a new era, the era of atomic artillery. But even with nuclear might, we still need conventional weapons. Research, development, and exploration. These bring about enormous improvements in existing weapons, as well as new ideas to keep pace with the future. Streamlining projectiles and redistributing their weight cuts down on aerodynamic drag. With a hollow base, there's more room for the propellant. Ballistic studies like this have led to range increases of 30%. Another idea for increasing range is to put a rocket motor in the base of the projectile. The motor ignites after the initial gun thrust loses its kick. Research and development have also heightened the effectiveness of munitions. Fragmentation, for example, has increased by 70% as a result of new materials. Totally new items have appeared, such as this anti-personnel mine, or this new anti-tank mine. Research in many areas contributed to their development. Picatinny has perfected high explosive anti-tank ammunition to the point where it will now stop any known enemy armor, literally melting a hole through steel. Here's something else that was developed and tested at Picatinny. Cartridge cases that burn up in the gun when they're fired. This promises huge savings in manufacturing costs because the cases are made from more plentiful materials. They'll reduce noxious fumes inside tanks and also eliminate the back-breaking job of hauling away spent cartridges. Here's a new development that looks like silly putty and behaves like flypaper. It's a plastic demolition charge that you can slap on your target like a Band-Aid. It'll stick to almost any surface. But it works like the deadly explosive that it is, even underwater. You can pile it up in layers to add even more power. There's a built-in safety factor, too. It works only when you want it to. Unless you put a fuse on it, it'll take any amount of punishment without exploding. But put that fuse on, and it's something else. It combines speed, adaptability, and muscle. Other current projects include studies of new concepts in rocket engines, new propellants, and the use of liquid propulsion for artillery projectiles. One of Picatinny's laboratories concentrates on plastics. Here they collect and evaluate information for the entire Defense Department. The result, warheads and gun barrels made of plastic, inexpensive, lightweight, non-corrosive, adaptable. Plastics have provided simple answers to many complex problems. Warheads and propulsion systems are a part of the story, but there's more to modern firepower than that. In the Pyrotechnics Laboratory at Picatinny, work is being done on space tracking, too. This vacuum chamber tests specially designed photo-flash cartridges to see if they'll be dependable in outer space. They're visible for over 1,000 miles. The idea is for the missile in flight to fire several cartridges one after the other. Even against a backdrop of natural stars, this trail of flashbulbs will show up quite clearly on a photograph. The result? Missile tracking even more accurate than through electronics. Another area that's under study at Picatinny is called weapons vulnerability. One irony of science is that technological advances in one area often cause problems in another. For example, some munitions are fired by electrical energy. That's fine if you've got your finger on the power switch. But a nearby radio transmitter or radar equipment can fire them accidentally or knock them out of commission altogether. Picatinny Arsenal is tackling that problem, a tough one, but no tougher than others it has solved in the past. Located in Philadelphia is Frankfurt Arsenal. It's been one of the cornerstones of the nation's defense program for over 150 years. In physical size, Frankfurt is small, only 112 acres. But coming in a small package hasn't hampered Frankfurt's achievement. Its 6,000 employees are dedicated to their mission. Although it extends to other areas, that mission deals mainly with small arms ammunition. Almost every round of small caliber ammunition ever fired in our national defense was either produced or developed at Frankfurt. Here's one of the arsenal's latest developments, a duplex cartridge. Each case holds 2 bullets, the rear one angled to send it on a slightly different path. It may not make a soldier a better marksman, but it will give him more hits. That's because the rear bullets strike in a random pattern a few inches from the front bullets. At Frankfurt, they're applying to small arms the principle of a caseless cartridge that burns up in the rifle. The greatest challenge has been to overcome cook-off or premature firing. There are also extraction problems, but Frankfurt isn't giving up. The obvious advantages of an economical, caseless, lightweight cartridge are enough to keep the staff hard at work on it. These are not American weapons. Frankfurt also runs a center for testing the weapons and ammunition of our NATO allies. Frankfurt's major concern is with small arms, but it often supports the development of larger munitions too. We tend to think of munitions in terms of explosives and gunpowder. There's more to it than that. Take the science of optics, for example. Modern weaponry leans heavily on lenses, reticles, and various complex optical instruments. Today, just about every weapons system in our arsenal relies on optics to sight and center on its targets. And the optical aiming devices work on the same principles as those developed at Frankfurt. This work calls for sophisticated equipment with sophisticated names. Here, an aspheric curve generator for changing the geometry of glass. A precise pantograph that engraves lines on reticles, lines 1/10 the thickness of a human hair. If Frankfurt has machines with delicate skills, it has men with skills that are even more refined. A required tolerance of 1/40th of a light wave leaves the machines behind and the men take over. There aren't many craftsmen whose art is polishing parabolic mirrors. Frankfurt Arsenal has them, as well as the highly specialized equipment they need. This particular study deals with automation to see how it can be applied to manufacturing military optics. This complete optical facility is unique to the Defense Department, and it serves the entire defense establishment. Propellants have uses which aren't really firepower in the destructive sense, and Frankfurt develops them too. This device injects soldiers automatically if they're incapacitated with a remedy for enemy nerve agents. Propellants also inflate life rafts for the Navy, the Air Force, and the astronauts in the Apollo program. Another item activated by a propellant is designed to sever lines and cables. It's part of another device, which may well be the program's most noteworthy achievement, the mechanism that ejects Air Force pilots from crippled jet planes. To get the pilots safely out, more than 30 propellant charges must fire, each one at precisely the right instant. The program has saved more than 3,000 lives with no known failures. Frankfurt's newest mission is to develop equipment that will automate the maintenance of military vehicles. When it's perfected, this apparatus will spot the defects of a vehicle engine instantaneously. Its forerunner, designed for tank engines, is already in operation. It has eliminated costly teardowns for inspection. The Army has countless items, from gun sights to barometers, in which precise calibration is vital. Also at Frankfurt is the Army Metrology and Calibration Center. This center at Frankfurt provides the engineering and technical direction for the Army's entire calibration system. Highly skilled personnel ensure that our weapons will be checked with nothing but completely accurate equipment. There are other special research areas at Frankfurt too. These include metallurgy, corrosion, and lubrication. Powdered metallurgy is an old science. Here it's probed for new applications. Friction welding will someday eliminate the brittleness that results from joining two different metals. Ultrasonics are also being explored, as are overlay welding techniques. Frankfurt is working to reduce corrosion in hydraulic systems, and they're working to develop lubricants that will be more effective in the vacuum and shattering cold of outer space. Radiation chemistry research has produced reactions that would have seemed like magic a few years ago and produced totally new compounds. Frankfurt keeps pace with new ideas and stays ahead of them too. The staff is always ready to accept a challenge, proof that this arsenal, which has served America well for 7 generations, will not fail her in the future. Edgewood Arsenal is another center of munitions activity. Located near Baltimore, Maryland, it was established during World War I. This is the headquarters of a whole complex of activities: research, development, manufacture, and supply. The arsenal's mission takes in just about anything chemical. The complex includes 3 Army installations. It employs nearly 8,000 scientists, engineers, technicians, and craftsmen in many specialized fields. At Edgewood are the research, weapons, and defense development laboratories. These labs are responsible for developing defenses against chemical weapons. You'll find the same tools here that you would in any organic chemistry lab, and a few that you'd find almost nowhere else on Earth. This complicated instrument has a complicated name, a nuclear magnetic resonance spectrometer. Its function, to pry into the secrets of the invisible and determine molecular structure. The products of this research and development include protective clothing and masks, guards against fallout or gas. This protective mask is standard issue to the military, and this is its civilian counterpart. It comes in all sizes. The masks are defensive weapons, but the products of chemistry can be offensive and include tactical weapons, a wide variety of smoke, flame, and incendiary munitions. In addition to starting fires, Edgewood also concerns itself with putting them out. This work is on a special project requested by the Air Force and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. When a rocket fuel meets an oxidizer, it ignites spontaneously. Violent, accidental fires can flare up at any missile site where fuel has spilled. Edgewood is finding ways to control these fires. All of mankind has benefited from the Army's chemical and biological research. A vaccine against anthrax, mustard compounds for the treatment of some cancers, the development of weed killers, insecticides, fungicides, and other agricultural chemicals. But Edgewood Arsenal's main objective is to keep the nation strong. This in turn will help keep it free from enemy attack. The Army Biological Laboratories are located nearby at Fort Detrick, Maryland, the center of the Army's biological research and development program. The research at Fort Detrick is similar to the work at Edgewood, but instead of chemicals, here it deals with biological agents. Working with deadly microorganisms is about as dangerous a business as you can find. This is evident from the safety precautions needed to protect the researchers from accidental infection. In addition to the safety measures you can see, all the laboratories are kept under a partial vacuum. This keeps contaminated air from escaping into the clean areas. All work with infectious material is done in sealed cabinets. We can develop our defenses against biological attack only if we learn everything there is to know about disease-producing organisms. Research such as this has had important applications in medical science, leading to the development of vaccines against many diseases. Other results of this continuous study have included rapid warning devices for biological attack and antidotes for biological agents. Development of a complete defense against possible biological attack is the sole objective at Fort Detrick. Even after munitions are designed, developed, tested, and proved, there's still an enormous problem: producing them and getting them to the soldiers in the field. It means knowing who has what, how long it's been there, what shape it's in, how much of it there is, how much more is needed, and making sure that replacements arrive on time. It adds up to a tough and exacting job. It belongs to the Ammunition Procurement and Supply Agency, known as APSA. APSA is located near Joliet, Illinois. Under its direction is the manufacturing of all conventional large caliber ammunition. It also controls inventory and is the maintenance center for chemical munitions. This agency also provides the Air Force, Navy, and Marines with ammunition, propellants, and explosives. In addition, it loads missile and rocket motors for the Missile Command. These activities first got underway in 1940 when the government began a $3 billion construction program. By 1945, 84 plants had been completed to make all types of munitions. Today, 11 of those plants are active. APSA controls the operations of these active plants and holds a number of others in a state of readiness. All of the plants are operated by private contractors. They may manufacture propellants, explosives, shell and cartridge cases, or other metal parts, or assemble, load, and pack finished ammunition items. APSA provides the parts and supplies used by these plants, and it gets these too from private industry. All contract bids get the same consideration, whether the bid is from a small, family-owned plant or from one of the largest companies in the nation. All successful bidders must have the resources, equipment, people, and skill to handle the particular job. Before awarding a contract, the agency conducts a careful survey to make sure that the bidder can meet all the requirements. APSA is also responsible for munitions stored in more than 20 Army depots. It has to keep them inventoried and ready to use. And if, for any reason, ammunition becomes obsolete, this agency sees that it's disposed of properly. One way is to destroy it safely by burning. Another way is to process it into some other useful product that the government can resell. But the agency's main objective is to have the right ammunition at the right place at the right time, and enough of it. When a request comes in, it goes to the manager responsible for that particular item. The item managers take immediate action. During an emergency, they may work on an around-the-clock basis, directly with the Materiel Readiness Control Office. Electronic computers lighten the inventory load. No matter what item is needed, this machine will immediately tell you how many there are, where they are, what condition they're in, and to whom they may already have been promised. And as if that weren't enough, it also advises which depot will get it where it's going the fastest. Everything that came before, the research and engineering, were of course indispensable. But it's procurement and supply that actually, physically places the tools of combat in the hands of the fighting man, whenever and wherever he needs them. To the layman, it's the spectacular blast of an explosive that tells the story of munitions. But to those in the business, the story lies in the painstaking day-to-day tests, the obstacle course that every item must pass before it's given to our fighting men. Can it withstand the force that sends it on its way? Can it take the rigors of shipment? Will it function at temperatures ranging from 65 below zero to far above 100? The story of munitions is the story of test equipment that can X-ray 2 feet of steel, or freeze on film a projectile spinning at 25,000 revolutions per minute to reveal malfunctions. All this is backed up by computer systems that can answer a question in 1 hour that would take 30 technicians with desk calculators a full year. It's the story of one concept applied to different items. The story of cooperation between different agencies working for common goals. A good example is this solid fuel rocket, which produces 47,000 pounds of thrust in 1/2 a second. It can rescue pilots from planes flying at 4 times the speed of sound. The story of firepower is the story of the Munitions Command's daily efforts to do its job and do it well at Picatinny Arsenal, at Frankfurt Arsenal, at Edgewood, at Fort Detrick, and at Joliet. That job is very simply to keep us ready. This readiness is an embodiment of a concept as old as our nation. For the words of George Washington hold as true today as they did when he wrote them. To be prepared for war is one of the most effectual means of preserving the peace.
Suddenly, the guns stopped firing, and there was peace. On a muddy-colored day in September 1945, in a city called Tokyo, an American flag which had been made by machines in Camden, New Jersey, rose slowly into the Japanese air, and there was peace. And this is what it looked like. This is how it was that day when history turned the corner into the future, down a Tokyo street, and the world was at peace, perhaps forever. The Japanese soldier, defeated and disarmed, returned to a homeland stripped of its power and will to make war. Here was testimony to the effectiveness of our superfort incendiary raids. Yokohama, razed and seared by the fire bombs. Tokyo, 80% destroyed, 100,000 dead. Antiquated hand pump firefighting apparatus was proof that the Jap had not believed it possible. It was possible. But it would take a long, long time to convince Japan of its defeat. A long-range educational program using the press, radio, motion picture, and school facilities was designed to convince the Japs of the Empire's war guilt and to foster peaceful and democratic processes in the defeated country. For these people, men, women, and children, the die was cast. American planes buzzed Tokyo, winging over the Imperial Palace, reminding its heaven-born tenant who was boss. Below, Japs bowed with reverence before their unseen emperor, who was now taking orders from Washington, D.C., USA. Emperor Hirohito, 124th of his line, supreme power in Japan, until General MacArthur took over the reins. In these films from another day, General Hideki Tojo rode behind the Mikado in pompous display. At a Yokohama hospital on September 11th, Tojo lay near death after shooting himself with an American pistol. The blood of a Yank sergeant helped save the ex-premier for trial as #1 war criminal. Tojo ordered the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor. His deed came back to haunt him less than 4 years later in a blast of atomic energy which roared the final death note for all Japanese militarists. Smoke rose 50,000 feet. An explosion equal to 20,000 tons of TNT brought the greatest man-made disaster in the history of the world. This was Hiroshima. The first atomic bombing of August 6th completely leveled 4 square miles, constituting 60% of the city. Nagasaki, where the Strategic Air Forces loosed a second atomic bomb on August 9th. 18,000 of the city's 50,000 houses and buildings were destroyed, including the vaunted Mitsubishi steel foundry. It was the beginning of the end. The Allied fleet, approximately 400 vessels strong, received its ceasefire orders early on the morning of the 15th. Surrender in the Pacific cut short new attacks planned to precede actual invasion of the Japanese mainland. Occupation began on the 30th. Guarded by a cover of aircraft and guns of the 3rd Fleet in Tokyo Bay, U.S. Marines and Blue Jackets walked ashore at the Yokosuka Naval Base, south of Yokohama. Brief formalities marked the official acceptance of the base. Lying half sunk a few yards from shore, the once mighty 33,000-ton battleship Nagato was taken over by a prize crew. Submarine pens. One of Japan's main naval bases, Yokosuka had a formidable lineup of amphibian tanks ready for launching. The Jap garrison eagerly showed off its array of weapons. A Baka suicide plane. Meanwhile, 18 miles to the north, transports from Okinawa swarmed in over at Sugi Airfield to prepare for the arrival of the Supreme Allied Commander. Wreckage of Japanese aircraft littered the battered field, setting for one of history's most dramatic moments. Japanese labor completed clearing the strip. At Sugi was American manned and ready, and all awaited the C-54 bearing General of the Army Douglas MacArthur. At 1400, 30th August, the gleaming 4-engined transport brought in the Americans slated to assume control over Japan's affairs. Bataan was remembered. The future had begun. First to greet his chief was Lieutenant General Robert Eichelberger, newly appointed commander of the Tokyo area. MacArthur moved to his next great role aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay on the morning of September 2nd. In a 20-minute ceremony conducted topside, in the shadow of the battleship's #2 16-inch gun turret, the fate of Japan was sealed forever. The 11-man Japanese delegation was photographed by cameramen perched at every vantage point to record the momentous event for posterity. The stage was set. General MacArthur walked from a cabin to open the surrender ceremonies.
We are gathered here, representatives of the major warring powers, to conclude a solemn agreement whereby peace may be restored. The terms and conditions upon which surrender of the Japanese imperial forces is here to be given and accepted are contained in the instrument of surrender now before you. I now invite the representatives of the Emperor of Japan and the Japanese government and the Japanese Imperial General Headquarters to sign the instrument of surrender at the places indicated.
On behalf of Emperor Hirohito, Foreign Minister Mamoru Shigemitsu signed for the Japanese government. Japan accepted unconditional surrender according to the provisions of the Potsdam Declaration.
The Supreme Commander for the Allied Powers will now sign on behalf of all the nations at war with Japan. Will General Wainwright and General Percival step forward and accompany me while I sign?
General Jonathan Wainwright, liberated hero of Corregidor, and British General Arthur Percival, who was forced to surrender Singapore, stood at attention behind MacArthur as he began to write his name with the first of 5 pens. Pen number 1 went to General Wainwright. The second pen was handed to General Percival. The third and fourth were earmarked for the National Archives and West Point. The fifth, Mac kept for himself.
These proceedings are closed.
An empire lost. Territories formerly under Japanese control were divided into 5 surrender regions to expedite capitulation of field commands. All enemy forces in China, as well as Formosa and northern Indochina, to yield to Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek. Those in Manchuria and northern Korea and Karafuto to the Soviet commander-in-chief of the Far East. Those in Burma, Thailand, southern Indochina, Malaya, the Netherlands Indies, New Guinea, the Bismarck Archipelago, and the Solomons, to Admiral Mountbatten and the Australian commander. Admiral Nimitz accepted the surrender of the troops in the Ryukyus, Bonins, and Mandated Islands, and General MacArthur that of the forces in Japan's home islands, southern Korea, and the Philippines. One of the first field surrenders was on picturesque Cebu Island, central Philippines. Men of the 8th Army's famed Americal Division participated in ceremonies incident to the capitulation of 2,655 bedraggled Japanese holdouts. The commander of the Japanese 35th Army handed over his saber. Swords of Jap officers were piled 6 deep before the show on Cebu was over. But the supreme moment was yet to come in the Philippines. Mist hung over the governor's palace at Baguio, summer capital of the Commonwealth, as Generals Wainwright and Percival, fresh from the Missouri signing, arrived to see an arch foe capitulate. None other than General Yamashita, ferocious tiger of Malaya, who had exacted surrender from Percival at Singapore. Yamashita came out of his hideout in northern Luzon's Caraballo Mountains formally and unconditionally to give up the remnants of his once powerful forces throughout the Philippines. The generals signed on the line. An estimated 40,000 troops were surrendered by Yamashita. Following the 11-minute ceremony, Yamashita was turned over to the MPs as a prisoner of war, and he had a brand new nickname, Gopher of Luzon, hung on him by an anonymous GI. New Bilibid Prison south of Manila was the next address for Yamashita. A nice, quiet cell awaited the fangless tiger. Surrender of bypassed Marcus Island, 1,200 miles southeast of Tokyo. Aboard the U.S. destroyer Bagley, a Japanese rear admiral handed over a garrison of 2,500 naval personnel. Wake Island, one of the greater chapters of American heroism was brought to a close on September 4th, with Old Glory run up to mark our retaking of the island. This was strictly a Marine show. It belonged to them. Colonel Walter Baylor, last man to leave Wake, proudly accepted the honor as first to return. Wreckage found around the island included the original Grumman F-4F Wildcats, part of a Marine squadron of only 12 planes, which helped delay the capture of the Pacific Bastion for 14 days. Singapore, this Gibraltar of the East, overrun in 42 after a swift Japanese advance through the Malay jungles, was restored by seaborne occupation forces. Ships of the British Pacific Fleet off Hong Kong, which had been the first Allied stronghold in the Orient to fall. Surrendered on Christmas Day, 1941, Britain's 32-square-mile colony was the scene of massacres that early showed a shocked world how the Jap meant to rule. In August 1945, the British took over again. Navy combat teams flushed snipers from alleys and streets. Hong Kong had heard the last British shots fired in the war. Nanking. For 8 years since the infamous Japanese rape of the city, this day was anticipated. In the auditorium of the Central Military Academy, former enemy headquarters, the longtime conqueror at last bowed out. By a stroke of a pen, 1 million hated Jap troops in China surrendered to Chiang Kai-shek. 170 miles away in Shanghai, the yoke was lifted amid great rejoicing. The fabulous city of nearly 4 million residents was free for the first time since August 13, 1937. Free with them were approximately 6,000 Allied citizens, including about 1,500 Americans. Southern Korea. Yank troops received a roaring welcome from a people who had been under the Japanese lash for nearly 40 years. Surrender ceremonies were held in the throne room of the governor's palace at the capital city of Seoul. The capitulation of all enemy forces in the American occupation zone was taken by Lieutenant General John Hodge, 24th Corps commander. Outside the palace, the Japanese colors were hauled down. The Hermit Kingdom was free again. Restored to Koreans were the basic freedoms long denied them by the Japs. Throughout the Pacific area and Asia, these were the hours of reckoning and of rescue. Rescue not alone for oppressed populaces, but also for Allied prisoners of war who had endured endless Jap atrocities in hundreds of PW camps. Men from Bataan and Wake, the Aleutians, Marianas, Hong Kong. Men of ships sunk at sea and planes shot down in combat, at long last awakened from a nightmare to learn to laugh once more. The evidence piled up high as camp after camp gave up its surviving prisoners. Well-authenticated stories told of solitary confinement and tortures. The most brutal methods were reserved for those from whom the Japs hoped to force military information. Victims bitterly related incidents of beatings with bats, rifle butts, bamboo rods, and belts. The primitive savagery, the filth and starvation were reminiscent of the death camps at Buchenwald and Belsen. Red Cross packages were nearly all stolen by the guards. Death claimed many of the 200,000 Allied prisoners. But for those who lived to see the day of liberation, there was some revenge. Out of the darkness, back to civilization, came men who had shaken hands with death. For thousands of homes the world over, there was to be cheering news. Owing to the Jap trick of not reporting numerous Allied prisoners, men long believed dead could flash the happy word of their survival. The rescued were moved from the Japanese shore to waiting hospital ships. Their freedom was complete. Their hope for freedom forever for all mankind was voiced by their commander aboard the Missouri when he said,
"It is my earnest hope, and indeed the hope of all mankind, that from this solemn occasion a better world shall emerge out of the blood and carnage of the past. A world founded upon faith and understanding. A world dedicated to the dignity of man and the fulfillment of his most cherished wish for freedom, tolerance, and justice."